Today's comics market is ripe with new titles by creators who are determined to get their books into your hands. My name is Onrie. For the last decade, I've been making and selling my own creator-owned comics and dealing as a collector in live sales. My signature series, Yisun Shin, is the book that cannot be defeated in battle and has over 250,000 copies in print. Now I'm taking comics to the next level and laying the groundwork for my fellow creators to get their voices heard so they can connect directly with you. This is your chance to engage live with top comic book talent and get your comics signed without having to wait in long lines or pay any fees. But remember, we only have a limited amount of their books in stock, so always remember to call it as you see it. You're watching Virtual Signings with Onrie, the live event show. What's up, everybody? You're watching Virtual Signings with Onrie. I'm your host, Onrie. Welcome to the live event show. A couple things I want to say before we kick off today's episode is that I just want to say that it's been a really tough day for me personally. Just, in between everything that Kevin and I got going on with our collectibles business and acquiring everything. What's up, Cora? Good to see you. Mike, good to see you. And, we're constantly we're in the very beginning stages of really getting involved as dealers and trying to find that balance in between being a comic creator, dealing and still having time for family and everything. The weight of that can sometimes get a little bit heavy, but I got to say, like, every single time I come out here with you guys, that's when I truly light up and I let everything go, because this is a time that I get to spend with you guys. And I know that, how much it means to you guys, because we all got our problems. We all got stuff going on. And so I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for always supporting what we're doing and everything we got going on. So today's guest, speaking of support, today's guest is I would say one of the premier voices of the comic book world. And you may not see a lot of articles about him in Bleeding Cool or in Newsarama, but that doesn't make it any less true, because I got the advocate in the house today, guys. I got Rob Andersin here. And what has Rob Andersin done? Rob Andersin constantly is out on the internet pushing other creator-owned stuff. He's pushing his own creator-owned stuff, but he is a true advocate for comics. And I've interviewed him before on Live with Onrie. So you guys can check it out. It's free. Just go go to YouTube and you can check it out. And Cora, I'm doing fine. Honestly, sometimes I think the main thing for me is like, sometimes we have bad days, but you just got to realize, at some point that at least that's how I take it, is it could always be worse, I suppose. And you just kind of keep your head up. And so, yeah, I'm doing just fine. And I was mainly trying to underline how much I enjoy being here with you guys and how it really puts me in good spirits right away. But going back to today's guest, he's just really a fantastic guy, and I've never really had a chance to get acquainted with his work. His initial book, which already sold out on this virtual signing, by the way, that I was introduced to, is Barbara Unleashed. And I'm going to this book right here, which is absolutely awesome, and I really enjoyed it. And we're going to talk all about it right now. And you guys will actually have an opportunity to purchase it directly from Rob right now. So this book right here, I read initially as a PDF, and I really enjoyed it because I felt like it was really informative and everything. But the other works that he has either written or advocated for are just really amazing, and he's got a broad range of things that he has worked on and things that he is doing, and it is just such a pleasure to have him on here. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Rob Andersin to the house. Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm sorry you had a bad day, but I love the energy. Even knowing that you'd be behind the scenes, he told me today's a bad day, and all of a sudden he comes out, just that's it. It's out of the box,
Well, honestly, I want to start off by talking about one of the books you advocated for, which recently got picked up by Scout Comics, Cat Dad and Supermom. And this book I read last night, and I enjoyed it so much because of the message it had and just how it made me feel afterwards. It was like, you got this book. This is a serious book, guys. This is not. It's a kids. It's targeted for kids, but I think adults can get a lot out of reading this book too. Absolutely, I think it is so well written and so well put together. And those of you who have been here with for our first virtual signing with Chuck Pino, he edited this, so he had a hand in what happened with Cat Dad and Supermom. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about this? And guys, remember, this is your chance to interact with Rob. So if you have any questions or you want to talk to him about anything, this is your chance.
Well, that's written by Bobby Gregory. He's a great guy. Raheel Mohsin, the guy with the art. I've been helping them since the start of it. And it's really one of those things where I'm an advocate for kids reading comics, and I'm a huge advocate for anti-bullying. I think bullying is one of the most devastating things that we have ever had to experience growing up as kids, because a lot of times when you're bullied, you're told to just take it. Now, this was a unique story. You know what I never heard of in comic book form? What are you supposed to do when you see someone get bullied? That's never talked about. No one ever talks about how we witness these bullying events and no one does anything about it. So this story takes that really head on and tries to deal with it. And you see this world where a young man named Jax winds up actually going into his dreams to figure out how to deal with a situation that he dealt with in real life that has to do with bullying. And the lunch lady gets bullied at his school. And you're going to laugh about this. Okay, so check this out. I was on a live feed at one point, and the idea was I couldn't come up with a story for an elephant that farts. So I came up with a mini story about the elephant that farts and passed it on to Bobby Gregory, who's made it into the character Eller Fart. And it's just one of those things that show you that if you're serious about creating, you're always going to find a way to create. And you work with great people. You connect with great people on this journey. And you always have a win. You know, even on your bad days, you know, there are people you can just go talk to and everything's better. That's what and for me, like you said, I advocate a lot for other people. I don't advocate as much for myself because I often feel, and I'm sure you feel the same way, your work speaks for itself. You kind of want to show your work. You want people to see it. You don't want to talk about it. You want to be like, hey, just open the book and you'll see. And that works so often. I miss conventions, just like you. I know we've talked about this. Miss not having conventions.
You actually called me up on my birthday last year, and it meant so much to me just to say, hey, I hope everything's going well. And I had a really good day, but you know, that was tough on everybody. And I think we've all had to learn how to adapt and how to grow from that. And I have to say, man, seeing how you've grown throughout this process of conventions being gone has been nothing short of inspiring. I mean, I watched you brought the entire community together once COVID hit. And I started learning and connecting with all these different creators, which really helped me a lot with what I did with Live with Onrie, which eventually got me to the point where I could feel confident enough to, you know, jump into live sales, which I mean, I didn't know what to do at first. And it was good to know that there was somebody bringing the community together and saying like, look, we matter. And that was something you were doing. You were saying like, they're saying we're not essential workers. And you've talked about that a great deal.
Yeah. And you know, it's just about, we all rise together, and you know that. I've seen you do that with what you're doing with these programs. You've taken people with you on this journey. You didn't just go, I can make this, you know, just for me. No, you made it for everybody. You are inviting people on your journey, and you have transitioned, but you did it from like, it goes to, of course, the book you wrote. You did it from a strategic point of view. You have done this, like you looked at the playing field and you were like, I could do, and I'll be honest, I couldn't do what you're doing. I don't have that factor. I can do the news, I can do pitches to galore, but what you guys have set up, that is not something in my wheelhouse. And I'm very proud of you. And I've told you that off camera. I've told you how proud because I see you doing something and you bring the energy and you're bringing these creators in. You're having these virtual signings. I never heard of a virtual signing until you did. It never occurred to me. But just to show you how this works,
you have someone who's very interested right now in Cat Dad and Supermom. And just so you guys all know, these books are all signed by the writer, Robert Gregory, in advance. Rob Andersin can confirm that right now. So he is like your proof of, you know, he's your certificate of authenticity here. And we got 3 copies of it in stock. Now, guys, a couple things to mention here. This book has been picked up by Scout. The copies I have right now have not. These are the this is like the first printing. This is like your chance to really jump on. And Rob, what is our price tag on this bad boy?
Those are, I sell them at the table for 10 because, you know, there are only 111 made of them. So they were all, because that's the award cover. We actually won an award for it at the ICAs last year. That's our award cover. No one knew at the time, but I was going to only print 111. We were going to put out a more basic cover. Now it's a complete collector's item because Scout we just came out of previews just last week. We just finished. We were in previews. They're heading to comic book stores on March 24th. So those are, and that has the thicker cover. We haven't even talked about that. That's from Comics Impressions. What did you think of those covers? Have you seen them yet?
Honestly, I haven't seen the stuff that's coming out of Diamond because we're at this.
The book's in your hand. Did you notice the cover difference?
Yeah. Oh man, I got it. Rob, let me just tell you something. Every book that you have put out, the quality of these books is hands down fantastic. I mean, like I can't say anything. I don't have any feedback that is negative about any of this stuff. These books feel like they're the value that you're pricing them at. And the fact that we only have 3 out of 110, $10, that's a steal right there. And Cora was asking if this is okay for a 15-year-old kid. Absolutely. I absolutely think I'm a 38 going on to 39-year-old man. And I straight up read this yesterday and I was almost in tears because Cora's got it. So Cora's got one, and the thing that's amazing about this story is that it really does speak to the idea of anti-bullying because, you know, I got bullied when I was a kid, big time. You know, I ain't gonna deny that. When I first moved to the town that I live in, which is a really like well-known, prosperous town, you know, I came from an immigrant family, and like we didn't have a lot of money when we initially came in. So yeah, I got bullied and picked on for a long time. I had a lot of self-confidence issues throughout my life, which you know, took a long time to come over. So, you know, no matter where you are in life, sometimes it's even better. The message comes across even stronger when it's broken down in a way that even a child can understand it. And I think that's what makes Cat Dad and Supermom so special. And I think that's exactly why Scout picked this book up, is because they see the power and the ability, the magic of what this book can do. And we only have 2 copies left now. And now that I know that these books are, you know, limited, if they don't sell out here, Rob, I might charge more for them, because once this book hits the street, once Scout's version of it hits the street, and you guys get you're in issue 2 right now. So
yeah, we're finishing. As a matter of fact, I've been seeing the art. What Rahil's doing in the next one, it'll blow your mind. Because, you know, the second issue, the artist always opens up. The first issue, they get a feeling for it. By the second issue, it's theirs. They own the characters, you know, and it's going to be an interesting story. We're actually dealing with, I'll give you something that not many people know about. We actually have Jax run into one of his heroes at a Comic-Con. And imagine what happens when a kid runs into a celebrity and they're trying to leave for the day. And imagine the issues that could raise. And it's a powerful journey of trying to explain actors to kids, and also who, like, the creator behind the whole story. And there's a beautiful sub story in it. You'll like. I think if you like the first,
I have no doubt. You've made a fan out of me. This is definitely a book that Hunter Killer Collectibles will be stocking. And you know, as soon as Diamond contacts us, we basically, just so everybody's watching knows right now, we have submitted that we want to open up a Diamond account, and we're looking for them to just come back to us and tell us what the next steps are. So pretty soon we'll be stocking brand new comics as well for anyone who's interested. So, you know, that's fantastic. I'm glad to know it. And Cora is so interested that she would actually like a second copy if no one else wants it. So we're going to give it a little time and see what happens here. But I think that's fantastic. So Rob, while we're on the topic of Cat Dad and Supermom, is every single issue of the book going to focus on different aspects of like growing up and, like, you know, some of the lessons that we have to learn throughout our life?
Now, we haven't written, but there are definite topics, and it's like the first one hits gold because it talks about a real world issue, but it does so in a way that you can talk to a child about. and you can have those serious conversations. So the doors are open. You know, there's so many things growing up, like being afraid of the doctor is a big one, being afraid of a dentist. Hell, I'm still afraid of a dentist, and I'm in my 40s. But even things like losing a grandparent, that's not off the table. And we're talking about how we could do that in a way and do it in a kind of connective tissue that invites younger readers, because we don't do that. We treat younger readers, because me and you grew up on Bugs Bunny. We saw some stuff, right? Like we kind of knew.
Yeah, we saw some slapstick humor, you know?
Yeah. And we also got a little more serious with it. And I love the fact that cartoons can do that now and pivot back and forth, but we always want it to be fun. This has always been meant, the one reason I love advocating for this is this has always been meant for a family to be able to sit down. And they'll bring me in to help with the story editing, because I'm such an advocate for children reading comics. And, you know, the Elefart character was something that we came up with live on air. So I've always been involved behind the scenes. And we pitch ideas, and like you have Chuck pitching ideas, Rahil's pitching ideas, and Rahil's in India. Chuck's a Canadian. So you have this international value system that we sometimes talk about. And hey, how would this be in India? Like, how would you say this in even India? The first issue wound up actually getting its own run as an international book before we hit Scout. And he did well there. But of course, you know, when you go to Scout, that's it. You have the one Scout issue. But, you know, it's been a great journey, and doing something that gives back to children and helps them feel less alone is the goal of the book. Every book, and it, you know, how great is it to sit down with your kids and read something and see them come alive?
And so it's easy for them to read too, guys. Like, this is a book that, one thing I really appreciate, I'm so used to reading comics that have such small letters now. I mean, that's just kind of like the pacing. It's how they balance out the page with the art and the storytelling. And, you know, not that this doesn't do it. It absolutely does. But I like the fact that there's more space for, like, the words to be read. And, like, it's one of those books where the message comes across very clearly. You know what it reminds me of? One of the things that we used to watch with my kid when he was growing up was Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. But every kid gets to a point where my wife and I, we always loved Daniel Tiger, because it would always kind of remind us where our values lied. You know what I mean? Because every episode always had like some kind of like theme of what's important in a family household. Like, you know, that we all need to be, we need to control our anger. We need to, you know, kind of like work on our emotions a little bit. We need to be understanding of what's going on around us. But there comes a point when kids reach a certain age where Daniel Tiger is no longer interesting. My kid, my older son, who's 8 years old, you know, he's into like, what is it, Johnny Test, and he's now watching Demon Slayer, and, you know, he's getting older. His tastes are budding. And that doesn't mean that the messages that are, that we learn on shows like Daniel Tiger or Sesame Street aren't still important. In fact, as we get older, we seem the world becomes such a more open space, and it also can become a darker place, and we'll get into that too, that we forget how wholesome these messages and how important they are. So even if you're an adult, this is definitely something that I think you can gain something from, no matter what age you're at, you know.
We appreciate that, and we will be dealing with a sequel to this very story eventually, where Jax has to deal with the idea of it following home, because bullying just doesn't stay in schools anymore, does it?
No, absolutely not, especially on the digital platform. I mean, just the other day, you know, sometimes we've had trolls show up on our show. I know you've had trolls show up on your shows on more than one occasion, and, you know, you have to learn how to. We handle it in a very my approach to it has always been to handle it very passively. You know, just to not engage with the person and just, you know, shoo them off, you know. But that doesn't always work. Sometimes you actually have to engage. Sometimes you actually have to say something. And sometimes you have to take action, which is what this first issue is all about. I really, really loved it. And my props to the creative team, to Robert and to Chuck and to your artist. I think they're doing a fantastic job. The only reason why I don't pronounce the artist's name is because I know I'm going to botch it. My apologies there.
That's the man with the last name that I'm still terrified to say out loud.
and every time it comes rolls off the tongue of a creator, they always sound so much more eloquent. But I want to move on. Before we move on, actually, just one last thing. We got 2 copies left of Cat Dad and Supermom. One of them is potentially claimed by Cora. She is giving everybody a chance to jump on this. This is one of 111 books printed. The series is picked up by Scout. Guys, mark my words that the next place this show or this comic is going is a TV show. I guarantee it. It deserves it, and it will most likely get it. So when that happens, a book like this is going to go up in value tremendously. Watch, we just sold Batman Beyond #1 a couple weeks ago. And that was initially, when it came out, $2. Today, that book is worth $150, and that's what we sold it for. It happens. So call it as you see it. You know what to do. Call it as you see it. We're going to move on to the next thing. And you guys can call this at any point. But the next book I want to talk about, Rob, because, again, this is something now that you've written. So we can talk about you as the writer. And this is a book that I think, as much as Cat Dad and Supermom is for, kids learning more about, life and everything, there's different aspects to life. And one of those areas that is rarely talked about, and those of you who are in work environments or who may be offended, be prepared. We're going to talk about sex right now, but we're going to talk about it in a very adult manner, and we're going to talk about it in a very wholesome way, because it happens. This is what we do. This is how people reproduce. But sex is also considered to be a pleasurable thing, and there's so many different avenues of it, and it's always approached in comics in a very dark way, and just in entertainment in general is a dark thing. Like fetishes, BDSM, all that kind of stuff is always seen as being like a bad thing. Well, what if you wake up one morning and you decide you're into that, but you're not a bad person, and you're not crazy, and you're not somebody who would hurt someone? Rob has crafted a book, a series here, that not only is really beautifully illustrated, it is this is a very well thought out book. It's so well thought out. I think this could be the most thought about comic ever, because there's so many areas that can be misconstrued if not handled properly. And Rob knows this world. He's about to tell us about it. We have sold out of Barbara Unleashed. Someone already claimed these books. We only got one set of them, but they're all gone. So if you guys are interested in Barbara Unleashed, all you got to do is call it as you see it, and Rob will hook you up with whatever it is you're looking for. And again, if you don't catch it right now, you just go to his website at the bottom here afterwards, and you can buy whatever you're looking for. But Rob, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about Barbara Unleashed, because I just love the approach for this. So tell me how this project came about. Why was it something that you decided that you had to do?
Oh, it was the first comic I wound up releasing, and it was never meant to be. It was always one of those things where, I'd been in the fetish community in New York City. I had been a part of the fetish community overall. And I'd watch things like 50 Shades of Grey come across and completely ruin any momentum at the point that we'd ever had to be taken more seriously. You see people lose their jobs. You see people lose custody. And it's all because people don't understand that they probably know someone who has a fetish. For most of us, a fetish, like Onrie was talking about, it just sort of happens to you. For me, it was part of me becoming, getting into my maturity. We'll put it that way. That kicked on right at the same point. And imagine being an underage kid and suddenly having fantasies that are bad. And I'm a little older than probably most people who are watching. So we didn't have the internet. I had to go to the library and look it up. And this is when I was having trouble even reading some of my dyslexia. And I had to look up something that basically told me I was going to grow up to be a joker. Because at that time, it was considered if you had a fetish, you were an evil person. There was something wrong with you. Luckily, science has caught up and realizes there's nothing wrong. But there's such a misconception left in that place that people don't even want to talk about it out loud. I can't tell you how many people, especially in our creative community, have come and asked me questions privately about this because they have a girlfriend that's into it. They have a boyfriend that wants them to try it. And they're very uncomfortable because, especially in America, and I've talked to creators from outside of America, so I know this is an American problem. We're nervous to talk about sexuality. And that has something to do sometimes with the way that we treat sexuality. Like you were talking about, it's got to be dark, right? BDSM has to be dark. The women on covers have to be half unclothed. Even the characters that are in comic books, though, the guys have shielding and the woman has like a chain link bra. Like we sell sex in America, and I'm not judging it. It's just the truth. But we never have the serious adult conversations about it. And I wanted to have that. And I wanted to create a character that you could go on a journey with and really feel for her. And the first book, the way it's done is very unique in its format. It's her blog and her mental images. So you actually get to see the world as the character has seen it, as she's writing on her blog. So she tells you a story of how she first introduces herself to the New York City Fetish Underground after having dreamed about it for years. The art is beautiful. Satine Zilli.
The art really is beautiful, guys. I mean, here's just some of it. And yes, it is provocative, but it's not like you're gonna open up this book and see like, you know, something that's just completely out of whack. Rob is telling a story here that's very important, and I think I love this is the issue I love the most, because I like the blog approach, because it allows you to be a little bit more expressive. And especially with a project like this, you can't just jump into the comic book sequential narrative. Mm-hmm. It almost lends itself to, hey, this is something that we need to cover all bases on. Another thing that's really great about this, guys, is in the later issues, there's like I want to say a glossary, or not a glossary, sort of like a hand guide of understanding what it's like, you know, to be a part of this kind of environment, or to be into fetishes, and how to basically come to terms with what you're feeling and all those kinds of things. And I think that's important, you know, for anybody. I mean, comics are for everybody, and I don't think there's any stone that comics should leave unturned.
And you're not wrong. There's a glossary. There's a literal glossary in the BDSM survey. There's a way to sit down with your partner and look at the things you actually like. And I've had friends be like, I never realized it until I read your book. I have a fetish. I have a kink. What do I do? Like, they're all nervous now. Like, they're like, oh my God, there it is. Yeah. They're like, oh my God. And it's a great way for you to sit down with your partner. And it's a way for you to, and it's funny because you'll be answering honestly, because once you get into your mind of filling something out, you stop thinking about what you're filling out, right? You just want to get it over with. So you start filling out things very honestly, and your partner goes, hey, I never thought that you'd be into that. And suddenly you guys are learning about each other. And sexuality is a shared experience. And we don't talk about that enough. We make sexuality, especially in America, I want to convince someone to sleep with me. No. That's not what it's like in the fetish community. Consent, like this whole thing with the Me Too movement and consent, that had gone through the fetish community in the 90s. So when it came to the Me Too thing, I was like, yep, I totally understand. And it's true. And there's a lot that goes into this book that explains not only the power of the dynamic between the people, but how important it is to respect other people and the damage it can do. The Aftermath story it's all about how she felt like someone had actually stolen her fetish from her after the end of the first book, and how heartbroken it makes her, and how the world changes. And did you notice the art changes for every book?
Yes, I did. And I read how, you know, there were situations that occurred with the artists not being able to stick to the book because they had other demands and stuff. But I like how the art changes throughout. And that's actually something we did with Mark's as well, because it's a thematic thing. And I totally felt it. There was one issue that felt more dreamlike, you know, and just so you guys know, the journey that Barbara is on is she's looking for a mentor, some physical person to help her understand what it is she's going through. And after the first issue, she is rescued by that person who helps her out of a really bad situation, which tends to happen from time to time. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really a part of that world, Rob, but how often is it that people take things too far, like realistically speaking?
I'll tell you this, because I don't like sharing anyone's story, so I'll share the personal story. For a time in my life, I was married, and the person I was married to, of course, went into the community with me because it's part of my life. And I remember her, this was like right before I'd written the book. And at this point, I'd written a BDSM, basically how-to guide that was like a written just prose. And I hated it when I read it because it read like stereo instructions. So I took all of that and put it into this, mind you. So she came to me when I was writing that, and she was like, everyone in the community, all the women I talked to, because, you know, men and women sometimes break up into smaller groups. It happens in social functions a lot. And she would tell me that every woman had a story, and they would be like, well, what's your story? And she had never been abused in the community because she'd only known me. And she was like, I didn't realize how much it had actually happened, because for a while online, I was helping a lot of people who were dealing with stuff because I ran a smaller group on a less known site. And there was always these women coming to tell me stories about abuse. And it was weird. I had to read things about abuse counseling and know what to tell these women who were bringing me these problems. So I got very hands-on with the idea that I didn't like this. I didn't like this. The community I was part of was allowing abuse to happen, and it was not okay. And I wanted to create something that empowered something. So this is meant to really be read by someone who doesn't know what the whole scene is, the fetish world, all that. This is meant for a newbie. This series, while enjoyed by people in the actual fetish community, and I can say that because I've already been invited to do signings throughout in different states at this point, but more importantly, this is for the new people who don't know, and if I can empower them from go, they'll know. The biggest misconception in the fetish community is you give away, you sign a contract. It was in 50 Shades of Grey, which, by the way, our slogan for the book is, for those who don't know, it's like if 50 Shades was written by an adult who knew what they were talking about. So the whole premise of this is to empower the people who are going to go into this, because anytime you go into something, the people who are already there are going to try to take advantage. And sometimes people don't realize they're taking advantage. So this does actually make even a dominant person sort of realize, well, wait a minute, what is consent? Consent's one of the hardest things to understand if we don't look at it. But when you start to really look at it, you begin to realize, hey, wait, maybe I can do things differently. Maybe there's a different approach. So if I can even stop a dominant person or a switch, those are people who go back and forth, from actually making a mistake with another person, isn't that worth it? I can help people learn what to. I've had people who read the book already send me emails telling me, thank you for your book. You gave me something I didn't realize, and I almost got into a bad situation with the guy. And I found out a few weeks later that he had done the same things to other women. So, I mean, it works. You know, the BDSM survey, so much of it explains to you what not to accept. There are actual warning signs, red flags that we talk about. This is about empowering people. This isn't about showing you boobs or trying to get you, stimulated and give you something to, like, it's not a trashy romance.
This is not a TNA book, guys.
Yeah, this is in reverse. This is it's been called a character study. It's called an inside view into something you never thought you'd get an honest look at. Because a lot of times you'll have people who do these quick shows and they show you the BDSM aspect and people spanking each other. They don't show you the fact that people go to classes, that people sit around and actually like panels at New York Comic Con for fetish in underground dungeons. And it's a real thing. As a matter of fact, that dungeon in the book is actually a real dungeon. There's a hidden roadmap to New York City's Fetish Underground in the first issue and second issue. There are real places that take place, and they are known. The one of the places, Paddles, that dungeon knows they're in the book, and they have copies of their star, and they're so thrilled to be in it.
So, Rob, just out of curiosity, because right now we've sold out of this on our end, but I know you have copies, and folks are more than welcome to call it as they see it. What are you doing all 4 of these books for?
Usually I do them because they're usually 10 each, so they would be 30 just the 3. But all 4 I do for 25, because the goal is always, the goal is always to get people to read your books. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The issues, 10. It's for those who don't know, it's a 32-page book. Onrie can back me up. This is not a book you'll read in 5 minutes.
No, it's not. It absolutely isn't, and it is a book that will. That absolutely commands your attention. And when you do read this book, it's a story too, guys. It's not just like, I didn't feel like I was just being taught something like, here's how you do things. This is what, don't do what Donnie don't does, kind of like, it's not that. It's not a how to, it's none of that. It's a story. It's a character study, like what Rob is saying. We're following this girl, Barbara, around as she discovers who she is and is dealing with the kinds of things that we all deal with in life, which is, feelings of self-dread because of how we're programmed, which is beyond our control most of the time. Like there's certain habits, mannerisms that we pick up. And I'll be honest, Rob, I'm not into BDSM, but I was able to relate to this nonetheless because it does speak to some of the other, things that I might be into that isn't that. It may not even be sexual. It doesn't have to be sexually related. And that's what I think is so amazing about what you put together is this is a book about acceptance, no matter who you are. It's not just a book of like, oh yeah, fetishes. It's not just like, here's a TNA book, which I mean, nothing wrong with that. I love TNA books, but this is a chance for people to really get an honest look of what it's really like. And that's another thing that I think we share in common. It's like, yeah, I put Yisun Shin out there, and yeah, Yisun Shin's a historical graphic novel and all this stuff, but what was the point of it? I put it out there so people know about what happened in throughout history, and particularly in that period. And comics are also made to inform, and this is just fantastic. I can't recommend Barbara Unleashed anymore, guys. And if you don't call it now, or you're watching the show later, all good. Just go to writtensins.com and call it as you see it. We will definitely be. Eric Stiltner would like a copy. He is one of our regulars, so if you could, if you don't mind grabbing a copy. Eric, can you please be clear? Do you want all 4 for $25, or did you just want the first issue? Let us know, and Rob will sign it. If Rob's in a position to. Can you grab a copy and sign it for him on the show?
Yeah. What he wants, I'll grab some. I'll just turn the camera off for a minute, so you guys don't want to see.
No problem. Yeah. Let's wait until he gets back to us and lets us know exactly what he wants. But in the meantime, before we move on from Barbara Unleashed, I just want to say, man, one thing I wanted to share with you, and I think I may have told you this on Live with Onrie, but I saw some of the hardships you dealt with in the very beginning of this, because I remember you were pushing this in 2018 and you were getting kicked off of groups on Facebook. So he wants all 4 for $25.
I'm just going to close my camera and grab it. Keep talking.
So one of the things I remember that, we're going through was kicked out from all these groups on social media. People like turning down the idea of you even being able to do this. Didn't you have a problem with going on Kickstarter as well?
It was more that we had a problem that Facebook wouldn't even cover it. So they blocked everything because someone went around and claimed that it was, there were things they were attaching to it that weren't true at all, but they somehow got Facebook to block it. And I fought it, but by the time it was done, we'd never been able to show any of it on Facebook.
And imagine what that's like for a project, folks. Now, real quick, Mr. Stiltner is asking signature if available. Of course, this is a virtual signing. This is the live event show. Of course, we're going to sign your books for you. As soon as Rob gets all these books out, he's going to turn his camera back on. He's going to sign all these books for you. He's going to show it to you. And Eric, you got your copies of the book signed right here live. And this is one of the amazing things about virtual signings, guys. Is this is going to be around forever now. And I'm going to be hosting this, and we're taking this to multiple platforms. And the one thing that is really great about this is this gives you a chance to not only engage with the creator, but you get to do it from the comfort of your home. And I just love the fact that creators are now able to use our platform as a means, as a vessel of moving some of their books and connecting with you guys, because that's what matters. That's what's going to matter for Rob the next time he goes to Kickstarter, whether it's with this or his final project that we'll talk about in a minute, which I don't think you guys are going to want to pass up, because once we get into the whole advocating side of Rob, which, we've spent the last 40 minutes really diving into, Rob's creative contributions to comics, and especially with Barbara Unleashed, because that's a very bold project, and the challenges that he faced. It's not unlike the challenges we faced with Yisun Shin, Rob, because we got rejected by every publisher. They all looked at the title of our book and are like, Yisun Shin, what's a Yisun Shin? That doesn't make any sense. I can't sell that. Dealers aren't interested. See you later. We had that problem. And the fact that the book exists is a testament to your own victory of pushing past all the, the hurdles in your way. And, we all go through this in life. We're always the one thing that we have the most difficult time accepting is when someone tells us no. And when someone tells us no, it can either mean that it's not possible, or it's not possible the way you're doing it. So he's showing you, Eric, where he's signing it. And Mike saying it totally sucks that Rob was bullied by someone on Facebook. I push every Kickstarter I'm a part of on Facebook and couldn't imagine not being able to. Mike and Trish, the proclaimed and undisputed king and queen of kicking it on the Kickin' Show, Kicking It with Onrie and Kevin. You guys are just such huge advocates for comics. We appreciate you so much. And honestly, both Mike and Trish are always reaching out to me and connecting me with other creators, people that we want to have on the show. And they're not doing it for any financial gain. They're doing it because they really want to help out these other creators. They really want to see their stuff get into your hands, and because their work belongs in your collection just as much as any other Marvel or DC book.
And if you notice that number 97, I'm giving him all the original printings of the first releases of Barbara Unleashed that were all different things. We don't even have these as single issues anymore. It's now a flip double issue. So he's getting the last set.
Look at that. This is amazing. Rob, I want to thank you for bringing that out right now on the show, because, this stuff is exclusive, guys. Especially when a creator is independent and unknown, that's the time to jump on their work. That is the exact time to make to commit, because at a later point, you never know. And I still have very strong beliefs about Cat Dad and Supermom that this is going to be huge one day. This is going to be a huge, huge property, and it's in the right hands. It's at the right house at Scout, and Rob's always going to be pushing Barbara Unleashed. She's been at it for a while now, and I just want to say too, Rob, I thought I was worried for you when I first saw how difficult this was. I was like, man, he may not be able to get through this. But seeing that you not only push through the negativity, but managed to release 4 books is an incredible feat in and of itself. So what would you say was sort of like your inspiration to keep going? Was it just knowing that you had to put this book out there?
It was just stubbornness. I'm not a quitter. I'm not going to let a bully stop me. Of course, I wanted the message to get out there. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing like getting that message out there. But on the same breath, too, I won't ever let anyone bully me down. I'll fight to the last breath I have in me. It's just that clear. You push against me, sometimes I have to remember, like you said, you have to learn to pick your battles. I'm just a kid from Queens, and when I had these people like starting with me, sometimes I didn't handle it always well. It's weird, and you know this. When you get thrown into this, there's no preparing for being a public figure, because people say things about you. They say things about your kid. Like you have people say things that, as a human being, you're not ready for. You get callous to it over time. You do get used to it. But I tell all creators, and I've warned people, I was like, you don't get it. It's going to happen. Oh, no, everyone's going to love me. And then there's that one person, and you've been there.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I was there yesterday.
Yeah.
So at the end of our episode, posted "Grow Up" at the end of the show we did in the afternoon. Now, I don't care. That's something I could be passive about, but nonetheless, haters is gonna hate, and that's just how it goes sometimes. Everybody's always jealous of somebody, and that's just a part of life. And sometimes, I think honestly, jealousy is something you can. Jealousy is not a long-lasting experience when it's aimed at one person. Eventually, you get tired of it, and it's not worth experiencing. Period. Though, as humans, I don't think we can really fault ourselves for feeling jealousy, because in some ways, jealousy can be a good feeling too, because it encourages you to keep moving forward, like your stubbornness. knowing that someone's negativity for being jealous of you or just not understanding or making a conscious effort to undermine what you were doing just made your resolve even stronger. It didn't change anything. And I say when a creator is onto something, don't get in their way. Be a part of their journey. Let them get to where they're going, because it's only once they get there that you truly understand what has been locked inside their head. And when it's out there finally in the open for all of you guys to enjoy, that's when you can really appreciate all of the work that went into it. And I think, Mr. Stiltner, you're really going to love Barbara Unleashed. This is totally up your alley, buddy.
And when I was signing it, I discovered something. One of these books is actually signed by Chuck, because Chuck's also the editor.
Yeah. Well, look at that. That is phenomenal.
So I had Chuck sign a bunch of them, and I randomly mixed them in. I don't even know where they are. So I only know when I'm literally passing someone a book. And I'm like, oh, look, Chuck signed this. So they're random ones. He's getting one of the random ones that Chuck signed. So
for a great price too, might I add, guys. Like, we charge typically for our usage in hardcovers $25. The fact that you're getting these 4 books beautifully, and they're in bags too, by the way. The fact that you're getting these books bagged and signed that's a huge, that you're winning. You're Charlie Sheening this bad boy is what you're doing. You're winning on all fronts. Now, Rob, we're coming into the last 15 minutes, and there is one more series of books that we need to talk about, and it is The Advocator right here. And these are a bunch of short stories put together by a number of hot names in the indie comics world that Rob has managed to put together and say, hey, give me a selection of, or give me a piece from your book, and let's put it in here, and we're going to feature a number of stories. And each of these books has different stories in them. So you're technically getting 9 books in here, and there's even some Barbara Unleashed in here. And Rob, before you tell us more about this, I only got one set of this. How much is all 3 of these books going for?
Each one of them is 32. So, like, again, it's 10 each. What I do is I usually sell them 3 for 20, because we want people to read the book.
3 for 20 for The Advocate. The Advocator Presents. So,
and then 90 pages.
20. And these books are all. Are these books signed as well?
Yes, I signed my part. And credit to, I don't want anyone feeling like it was just me. Credit to Chuck, who's behind this, and Travis Gibb. So they're all behind this as well. And you can see their names. So we all came together, matched up mutual ideas. Like you were talking about, it's short stories. The idea was basically to give creators in between Kickstarters something to sell on their tables. And it's a great thing. One day we might bring it back. Right now it's a little on hiatus just because we're all doing something different right now. Creators, you branch out. But I have something similar coming out just this month on Kickstarter called The Continuum. So it's a more advanced version where I actually go in and help creators even with the editing aspects. So with this, they submitted stories. With the other ones, I start at the bottom up. So I'm helping new creators as well. So if you guys want to see, and honestly, the Advocator, I called it the poo-poo platter of indie comics. It really is. It is these amazing creators. You have some of the best names. Eric Hawkins, who's up and coming. C.B. Zane actually did Barbara. Barbara, that art is from C.B. Zane, who's on Kickstarter right now with Into the Suck #6. That's his art for Barbara. You have Travis Gibb. He did his Reaper's story. You have Chuck, who had Belial. He actually explains Link's origins. So there's a lot in there if you're a fan of comics. And you get to meet, you get to see Connor Bartel. Joseph Duas does the Mary Revised in 2 of them. He really did a good job, actually, with that. Everyone in it really kind of, and it's, everyone has a different story. I like that about the book, right? There's not one theme. You get, no matter what you pick up, there's going to be a story in there for you.
It's interesting. Trish called me this morning and she said, you need to get in touch with Rob. Oh my God, you need to get in touch with Rob because he's got another thing going and you got to talk to him and see if you guys can work something out. And I'm very interested in doing that with you. I have a new book coming out that I'm working on. I don't know when it'll be ready. It'll probably be off in the distant future. So by that point, you'll have published, you'll have long since published the book. But I like this idea.
we're making a library. I have promised to make
wonderful.
100 issues. I have promised that this is going to be 100 issues. So trust me, we'll be around.
and guys, the fact that we have 4 issues of Barbara Unleashed is a sign that this is absolutely going to be the case. And nothing will stop Rob from making this happen.
And there's a series with Barbara. You did tell me to make sure we mentioned that because someone had asked you. Barbara has another series. The reason I'm calling them seasons.
Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, and the reason they're seasons is this was for the beginners. The next one's going to be for the moderate. So if you're not a beginner, this next story won't be for you. It will be a lot more honest of the things you see, but also a lot more in depth about the inner workings of the fetish community and how things feel, if you know what I mean. I will never be explicit. I will never be someone who makes something that is, I think there's a comfortableness with art and all that. Some of the things that you see, you don't need to see, your imagination can see, you know what I mean? The right placed panel implies just enough. You know, like you won't see insertion. That's a rule I've made. You will never see insertion in my books. There will be implied things like that, of course, you know, and I think that's the beauty of creating things. And I've always said this about comics. It's what happens in between the panels that is the most powerful as the writer. Wouldn't you agree? It's where you send their minds.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I think that the way that you're going about this is just, it's perfect. Like the first season, so to speak, is called Fetish Babies. And I think that's a term it's the new, you're a noob to the world of fetishes, right? So that's kind of the idea there. But as we get to know these characters, you know, a lot of things start to change and you become more accustomed to what this world is like. And you understand some of the terminology in that world. Now, again, I'm not into that. I may never be into that. But that doesn't mean that knowing it is a bad thing either. You know, I might know someone I might meet someone I really care about one day that is into it, and they may need some guidance or they may need some help. So knowledge is power just in general, guys. And the best thing about what Rob is doing with his comics is he's bringing his experiences to the page. And that's something that speaks to me a lot as a writer. In fact, I was so charged after reading Barbara Unleashed, the issues that followed. Let me just say, straight up, guys, I hate reading comics digitally. I am not a digital comics reader. I got to hold them in my hands. This is just, I've just made that decision. If I read digitally right now, it's only because it's a comic that we might have for sale that I don't want to get my fingerprints on or something like that. So in those cases, if I can read it digitally so as not to mess with the actual printed book, then that's great. But honestly, having these books in print, this is a whole nother world. It's just, that's the way they're meant to be experienced. And, you know, I love the print quality. I love the artwork. I think everything was put together very tastefully. And again, is there some nudity? Yes. But as Rob said, there's no insertion. There's nothing here that goes over the top. And even when we get to the more advanced levels of the story, even in the first season, you're saying that it's about to go even further, which I find kind of intriguing. It's like I want to see how much further it goes, simply because of the fact that I'm invested in the characters. Now I'm invested in what you've done. I think it's really amazing.
Point. It's to the point that if you like the characters, you'll go anywhere with them. You really will, you know. And yeah, Chuck had his story in there, and I do want to give with the Advocator a lot of love to Travis and Chuck that have been there for the entire process, that have brought it together. Travis was very instrumental in bringing all the creators that he had in it. Chuck did an amazing job making sure it got out there. Joel Rodriguez joined us to do some behind-the-scenes work at one point, and Joel now over at Scout Comics. We also had Jerome. I forgot it. I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm not going to try. But Jerome also did some cleanup work. The Advocator is just passionate about indie creators doing it. And 2020 was a bad year for it. I'm sure in 21, someone will mention the Advocator, and the three of us will come together again. Because again, the Advocator is a very specific niche. It's for people who've been on Kickstarter to help them get a mini story in between their stories. So it's a great way to see the characters you love in a small little, what we call them, comic-sodes. So you get a little more of those.
Folks, we got 6 minutes left to go before this episode is over. We have 3 issues of The Advocator Presents. The Winter Edition, sorry, fall edition.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at winter edition and the
Summer.
Monster. This is the summer edition. Okay?
It's Florida season. We don't have spring in Florida, so we didn't do a spring issue.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that's what it's about. Okay,
we're in winter for 2 weeks now.
Yeah, well, our winter just hit really bad, and we got hit with a really huge snowstorm. We got one of those some term I've heard for the first time ever, like Nosferatu or something, like it's Northeaster, something like that.
Oh, the Northeaster?
Northeaster or something like that. I don't freaking know.
I'm from New York. We got those a lot, but you guys don't get them often.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we're in the Midwest. We don't get it. So I'm in Chicago, so yeah, we don't.
This thing was huge. I'm from New York, so I still have family up there. So whenever a storm hits and I have friends, they're all telling me about it. And I'm like, have good luck shoveling.
Yeah, but yeah, that.
That's why I live in Florida now.
But you know what this reminds me of? The Advocator Presents is really kind of like Dark Horse Presents as well, which we have a lot of DHP comics in our collection. And, you got people on here, folks, talking about The Void by Chuck Pino. If anybody doesn't know who Travis Gibb is, we actually have some of his work in stock, Voodoo Nations, a really fantastic series that we've.
Issue 2's coming. Voodoo,
I'm so excited, dude. Oh my God, this second issue is going to be nuts. So Joe McAfee is asking if the Barbara Unleashed comics are coming to Terraform.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. Okay, let's see what happens. Nosferatu. No, it's Northeaster. It's an East Coast thing. Hey,
Yeah.
if you're from New York, where's your New York accent?
Only when I get angry. I'm told when I'm angry. You know what it is? Like you, I'm from immigrants, so I got brought up with a different dialect, and I'm from Queens. Queens is a big melting pot. But I'm told when I'm angry, there's no doubt where I grew up, especially being in Florida. They're like, you're a New Yorker, aren't you? It's how you curse at me that tells me. But yeah, I was raised by immigrants too. My mother was an immigrant, like literally off the boat. So, and they spoke Ukrainian in my household. So, I heard a different language, and that and I'm sure you'll understand this. It kind of messes with you a little bit, like your dialect changes being around two different languages your whole life. So you say things in a different way, and you pick up the immigrant slang, and you don't realize it's the immigrant slang when you go to the store and call something something.
Oh, yeah, I get it all the time. And the worst thing is like the way my family spoke Russian to me, and the way like you're supposed to talk Russian, like they talk to me in a very cutesy, like this is how we talk to our kids, and that's how I kind of learned Russian. So when I initially met my wife, she's like, talk like you're a 5-year-old when you're speaking in Russian. And that's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like as an adult, you don't want to be like the guy who's like still using kitty type words. Like
you learned another language though. That's impressive. I can understand Ukraine. I can't speak much of it. I just know that my name, you're going to laugh, and I know I'm not going to live this down, but I'll put it out there because I think it's funny. My name, Gregory, in Ukrainian is Rahor. So I got raised as a Rahor. So when I was a teenager, I'd bring girls around. My mom would get upset, and I used to be like, well, this is what you get for calling me Rahor the whole life. I just lived up to my name.
Eric Siltler saying, that's how I am Italian and Southern. Boomhauer meets the Sopranos. That's exactly it. All right, Rob. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. We're coming to the end here. Folks, last chance here to get the Advocator Presents the summer, winter, and fall editions for 20. You will see these books back on the Kickin' Show, along with the one copy of Cat Dad and Supermom we have left. And Rob, I want to thank you again so much for coming on the show today and making time, and for also stocking us up with books, which will be on the show tomorrow. We're gonna be back on CBSN, and I will absolutely be pitching these books.
Appreciate you. And just so I say it for everyone out there, we appreciate what you're doing right now. You're doing an amazing job. Just keep being you.
Absolutely, guys. Keep being you. That's awesome. All right, Rob, do me a favor. Hang out backstage. I'm going to close out real quick. I just want to have some words with you off stage. We always got to talk in public. It'd be nice to talk in private. All right, my friend. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks, thank you so much for making Virtual Signings with Onrie, the live event show, is so fantastic. Thank you all for tuning in. I love you guys so much. Appreciate it. I will be back on CBSN tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Eastern. And then Kevin and I are coming back for the evening show, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. We got all new stuff tomorrow. I just stocked up on graphic novels today, so we got brand new stuff. Tomorrow's going to be really phenomenal. So come on in the afternoon, come shop with us, come hang out with us, come kick it with us. We will see you later. Next week's guest, Virtual Signings with Onrie, is going to be fantastic. I can't wait to share with you guys their work. And once again, we still have 1 copy of Cat Dad and Supermom, and we have all 3 copies of The Advocator Presents. We will be, if you guys are interested, you guys can call it after hours. We got you covered. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Until that time comes, have a good evening.